Hey gang, welcome back to another video at Joe Daddy's Garage. As you can see, it's a beautiful sunny day in Georgia, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Now, if you saw the video that I did last week, where I did the walk around for the 65 Impala, you know that I need to replace the radiator in this car. I've already taken the radiator out, and I'm going to have to do some work to make the new radiator fit. Hopefully I can make this work out and not have any issues, but there are some things that I'm going to try to do that I haven't done before, and I'm going to bring you along for the ride, and we'll see if this works. As you can see, I've already removed the radiator. Not much information needs to be shared with that. It's just a matter of unbolting things, getting things out of the way. The big issue that I'm going to deal with is this shroud. Now you can see it's a big, metal shroud, and it bolts directly to the radiator itself. So the location of that is pretty critical, because obviously you don't want it to hit the fan. Now, the new radiator that I have, and I'll show you these details, it doesn't have the provisions for mounting that fan to it. So I'm going to have to do some work to make that happen. And I pointed that out in the other video. I will also point out that this has a unique spacer. I haven't seen very many cars set up like this, but there is a spacer actually bolted to the core support to allow for some distance, or to take up some gap, I guess, between the radiator and the fan. So if you look, this is about, well, overall probably 1.5 inches or so, and it is bolted directly to the core support, and then the radiator bolts to the spacer, and then the fan shroud bolts to the radiator. So quite the steps you have to go through to put this together initially. So I'm going to show you the differences between the two radiators and what I plan to do to make the new one work. So obviously here's the radiator sitting on my little work table. Now, I did point out in the previous video when I talked about this car, from what I understand from the owner, this thing has been recored at some point in its life, but it's just falling apart. There's corrosion all along the bottom, the tanks are failing, and it just needs to be replaced. Even on the top, it's kind of hard to see right here, maybe I can show you. Even on the top, it's corroding all around the top of the tank, front and rear, and just, it's overdue, needs to be replaced. Now the difficulty is, new stuff is not built exactly the same as the old stuff. And that becomes an issue whenever you're trying to make it look correct. And there may be other radiators available, but the one that I was able to find did not have this same configuration where it has this extra flange. Now if I set the shroud on, you can see how it fits. There are 4 mount points, obviously, and I want it to go back the same way. I want it to try to look as correct as I can. And I'll show you the difference between this radiator and the new one. So let me open up the box and I'll show you those differences. So this looks like a good replacement radiator. It has very similar stampings on the top of the tank and also at the bottom of the tank, so it mimics the original one very well. But as you can see on the side here, hopefully see, it has no provision for that shroud. Obviously, if I were to try to attach this shroud, I would have nothing to attach to, and that's a problem. So I have to figure out a way to remedy that. One idea was to build angle brackets here on the sides and attach it to the side channel of the radiator, and hope for the best, let's say. But I think I have another idea, and it's going to take a little more work, but I think it'll work, and I think I can make it look correct. So bear with me on this. I have some other details I want to show you. So I have the old radiator sitting on top of the new one. With this one having this built-in bracket on the side, it has direct location holes that mounts to that spacer that I talked about earlier, and then the secondary holes for the shroud. This new one, it kind of has a universal pattern. You know, this random holes, and the bottom one is slotted. That's why it's cut out like this, so that you could slip it over an existing bolt and not have to try to, you know, find it. That's nice. That's convenient, but it's not what I'm looking for. The top hole lines up with the top hole at the front here, but I just don't like the way this is configured anyway. And I think I'm going to have to come up with some real creative solutions. The dimensions on these two radiators look the same, and I'll walk around and kind of show you some more detail on it, but I have an idea. Now, as I was saying, the stamping looks very similar. It's got this little cutout shape, you know, these ridges and everything. It looks very close to the original radiator. And I think for the average person walking by, they would not even look at that and say, well, this is a replacement. So I'm very comfortable with that shape overall. It's the same way with the bottom. Very consistent. There's a little bit of, you know, change in form or shape right here versus the original, but that's not a big deal. And again, pattern very much the same all the way across. Again, I'm happy with the way this radiator looks, and I think I have a solution. I think my solution is to remove the bracketry surrounding the original radiator, and then remove the brackets on the new one and put this one onto this one. Now, if I look at it and understand it correctly, this appears to be brazed on here at the top, and down here at the bottom there's some evidence that look like spot welds. Now, I'm going to assume that this piece and this piece are just spot welded together, and that this thing just wraps around the radiator, because you can see there's a hole there, you know, gaps, and it just looks like it would make sense that because it has this lower channel, I don't think they would solder that on. There's no reason for that. So I'm going to unsolder this surround piece again and take this one off and try to make this one fit the new one. Now, it may not be the conventional approach, but you know, why not? I'll give it a shot and see what happens. So here's the plan. I'm going to unsolder these pieces, or this assembly, from the radiator. So, see if this works. Aha! Oh, that was simple enough. Let's do the other side. Yeah, I think this is going to work. Let's see. Excellent. Yep. Now all we got to do is clean this up a little bit, and of course remove the other pieces from the new radiator, and then reattach this. You know, I haven't tried this before. This is kind of a new thing for me. Years ago, I've done repairs on radiators, you know, capping off and soldering broken tubes, stuff like that. But it makes sense that this is something you could do, because, you know, if this was going to get re-cored, you have to take everything apart. And like I'd said, the owner told me that the radiator had been rebuilt previously, and that would explain why it appeared these came loose pretty easily. So, yep, good deal. Now hopefully I have the same results with the new radiator. Perfect. Haha. That's fantastic. Alright, since the end pieces are off, I know I'm going to have to clean this up some. You know, there's excess solder on here. So I'm just going to heat it up a little bit. And I don't want to get it too hot because obviously I don't want to unsolder, you know, the tank from anything. But I need to get some of this off of the tank so that, you know, the new piece can attach easily. And down here at the bottom, it's not going to attach at all. You know, it's just going to be at the top, but still this will be in the way. Doesn't take much. Great. Now I'll just do that to the rest of the areas, and of course on the bottom here I'll put some paint on before I put anything in place. Alright, I've cleaned up both sides here at the bottom, and basically what I did is I flexed this out a little bit, tapped on this with a hammer so that I could break loose any rust, and then I used the wire brush, you know, got inside, cleaned up the outside, flipped it over, did the same thing, and then I also took some lacquer thinner and shot it down inside of this and blew it all out, trying to make sure it's clean and dry. So at this point what I want to do is just put on some paint. I'm just trying to protect it. It's not going anywhere. It's not rusting apart. Just trying to add a little life to it. Really just hoping for some preservation here. It's not a show car, and it probably never will be, but I might as well save what I can. So I'm going to do that to the other side and try to get everything ready to put it back together. Alright, so I've cleaned up the surround that came off the old radiator, painted it, and now what I want to do is get the new section into the old section. Now what I'm using here is this welding table from Harbor Freight, and I like this because it has these little pieces that you can raise up to create an edge. See if I can do this without knocking anything off. So I can raise those up, lock them in. And now at least I have something to keep it from sliding off the table. And as you can see, I've painted up the corners of the bottom of the radiator. So I'm going to slip that into the surround. I will point out too that I've measured this radiator from bottom of the tank to top of tank, the exact same measurements as the original. The only difference I see is there's 39 tubes in the center instead of 41. They've added these little squared off pieces on the end here. I guess it's for some strength. So basically all I should have to do is squeeze everything together and get some solder on this, and that's going to take care of this tank, or take care of this radiator. So I'm going to come up with some clamps and try to get that all held in place. So what I've come up with is I have some bar clamps. These are some old quick grip clamps that I had, and they have these rubber pads on, so you can slide the rubber pad off. That way I'm not going to burn them. And since I have that flange on the opposite side of the table, I can pretty much clamp these in place gently You know, I'm not going to try to crush this thing. Maybe add some support. There. I'm going to add some more clamps just to hold it in place. So what I've done is I've clamped everything down to keep it from moving. I do have the clamps holding the tabs onto the tank. Looks like it's going to work out just fine. And then I have some paint sticks supporting the tank so that everything stays more square. So hopefully that's going to work. Now all I have to do is get some solder and solder this back together. Alright, so everything's in place. I have some solder here. Now this is not a structural repair, like it's not preventing a leak or something. This is just to hold this together. So it's kind of like a glue in effect. So just trying to get some heat in it and get the solder to melt in. And I may apply it from different angles as well. Right now I just want to get it to hold. I'll let that cool. See how it does. Okay, I've removed the clamp. Now I just need to remove the other clamps. It looks like it's going to stay together. That's a plus. Now, like I said, I'm probably going to add a little more material when I get it. I'll stand it upright and apply more at the top just to finish it off, because you can only get so far in there, you know. But it looks like it's bonded all the way across. It's showing it in those little holes. Well, everything seems to be working out just fine. The last thing I need to do, or one of the last things I need to do, is remove these plugs that are in the tank for the transmission lines. I'll transfer the fittings from the original radiator because it's had some replacement lines or had some repair work done on the lines, and I don't know that those lines on the transmission will fit directly, but I do know that the fittings that I have in the old radiator will fit. So I'm going to salvage these, make sure they fit. Yep. I'll probably add some Teflon tape as well, just because, but I wanted to make sure they fit first, and they do. So that's a good sign. Now, I can't say for sure that it needs the Teflon tape, but I'm going to add some anyway. It's not going to hurt it, I know that much. Now, I can't say that it needs this Teflon tape, but I'm going to add some anyway. You know, it's not going to hurt it to have it on there. If it pushes out of the grooves, well, it does, but you know, it was on there before. I'll just put a couple wraps. Thread that in. Now what's weird about this, I don't know why, but these fittings that came off, they were on the car, a 15mm wrench. I don't understand that. That doesn't seem right. But it fits it, so I'm going to use that wrench. It fits very well. Now, this did come with the plastic petcock drain. Slide this over a little bit. So it had a plastic fitting. I think I want to go back with what was in it originally. So I'm going to take out the one that came in the car, or came on the old Radiator. And so I need to test fit this as well. Make sure it's going to work. And it does. So I'll clean that up. And you can see it's got some Teflon tape on it. So I'll apply some more and install this. Well, I think that worked out very well. As I said, I wasn't sure how to approach this. You know, when I saw the differences between the two radiators, I had some concern. And I'm sure this has been done many times before, but not by me. I've never attempted something like this, and I'm happy that it worked out. So maybe it gives you some insight as to how you can approach a similar problem. I don't know, but at least now you know there's another way to do it. So the last thing for me to do, of course, is to reinstall this in the car. And once I get it all in, I'll show you how it looks, and we'll go from there. Alright, everything's in place. Fan doesn't hit anything, that's good. No leaks at the tranny lines. No fluid on the ground, that's a plus. I'm going to call that a success. Now of course I will let it run and cycle and check it after it gets hot, make sure it has the proper amount of antifreeze in it. But well, that's going to be the end of this video. Now I know I didn't go into details with removal and installation of the radiator and all the necessary pieces, but it's really not that complicated on something like this. You just find the bolts and pull them out. Obviously you want to double check, make sure all your clamps are tight, all your fittings are tight, all the bolts are tight, and then of course top off the antifreeze. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I will run this engine, get it up to temperature, let the thermostat open up and cycle the antifreeze through and verify that it has enough antifreeze in it. Other than that, I need to check on the transmission. The owner did mention to me that it had a slow leak, so I may end up having to work on that. I don't know if I'm going to have to reseal the pan or something along those lines, but I'll look at that as well. Probably won't do a video on that though. And I may look at the brakes and see what condition they're in, just as a kind of a courtesy check. Other than that, you know, the car's good to go. You can just keep on driving it as it is. Now, I did mention I may have to or I may look into replacing the door seals. I haven't gotten very far with that yet. I found a couple different manufacturers, and I need to do some verification on what's going to fit the car, and also talk to the owner, make sure he wants me to do that. Otherwise, I'm just doing it on my own. So I got to make sure that's correct as well. Obviously, it's not a Mustang video, but it's an old car. I love old cars. I'm happy to work on them, and maybe you found some information that you can use as well. If you're not a subscriber, I ask you please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this video or any videos like this. Everything helps on my end, to know that I'm doing good things to help people out, and that's going to be it. So until next time, take care of yourselves. And try to give you some details that maybe will be helpful. Earlier or last week, I'm going to add some anyway. It's not going to hurt it, I know that much. It's not going to hurt it. If it helps seal it at all, great. If it doesn't, well, it'll just wear itself or pull itself out of the grooves. Try it one more time. Then try it one more time. I think that's all he really wanted me to do, so. And so again, that's it. Now, the dimensions, he did mention about the transmission having a slow leak. Was getting the inner section of the new radiator to fit into the antifreeze at the proper level, and it turned out, man, I can't get this right. See ya.